come to Spirit Mountain House for a retreat for women veterans. As we walk up to the path, we see the natural, beautiful setting here, and it is peaceful and serene and really very magical. We have some of our sessions in the Hill House, so this beautiful little red house on the hill is where we have some of these wonderful, enlightening sessions. There's the circle, and then we're going up to the main house, and this is where a lot of the magic happens. To the Spirit Mountain Retreat, a place where you can return to yourself.
Hi, my name's Mary Morse, and I'm Executive Director of Spirit Mountain Retreat. We're a nonprofit in the San Jacinto Mountains in Idyllwild, California. And this is my colleague, Callie Wight.
Nice to see you.
Okay. And Callie is a registered nurse.
Registered nurse and a master's prepared psychologist.
And you have all kinds of experience with veterans, especially women veterans. If you tell a little bit about your, your history.
I retired about 4 years ago from the Greater Los Angeles healthcare system in the VA healthcare system. We established there many years ago in the mid-90s a comprehensive women's health clinic for women veterans, and I was recruited into that clinic from the Sepulveda Vietnam Veterans Center at the time, and they recruited me to be the first ever women veterans sexual trauma counselor, and eventually I also became the Women Veterans Program Manager. So I did that work for about 25 years, a little bit more than that, and retired at the end of 2014. And
as you know, when you first moved to Idyllwild, everybody asks you, oh, what did you do before you came up here?
Right.
And the reason it was important for me to meet her is because everybody I ran into up here kept saying to me, you need to meet Mary Morse. You need to meet Mary Morse. You need to meet Mary Morse. And I'm going, I have no idea how to meet Mary Morse. Where is she? How do I find her? And eventually we did meet.
We did.
The reason people were so adamant about us getting together is because we had a very similar calling. And the calling is to continue to provide services to women veterans with post-traumatic stress disorder.
Right.
First moved to Idyllwild, everybody asks you, oh, what did you do before you came up here?
Right.
So I told them that I had worked with women veterans, and I was the military sexual trauma counselor and the Women Veterans Program Manager. And I think all I had to say was that I had worked with and on behalf of and in the service of women veterans. And immediately they started saying, oh, you have to meet Mary Morse. Well, it took me a while to be able to finally meet you.
Right.
And then I realized why they wanted us to meet is because you and I have had the same calling.
Very true.
And that calling was to provide special services to women veterans with post-traumatic stress disorder.
Exactly, exactly. When I first became director here, and I have no idea where this want came from. I just knew that it was going to be important for us, for Spirit Mountain, to provide something for women veterans with PTSD. And I got the same deal from our board because a number of them knew you. And as they were telling you that you have to meet me, they were telling me, you've got to meet Callie. So finally we met. But sitting down to talk, we discovered that we just had the same heart for this.
Yep, the same passion, the same heart, the same dedication to doing it.
Exactly.
I mean, one thing that I say is that I completed my work at the VA. I was finished and done with the VA, but I wasn't really finished with my work being continuing to give back to those women who served. Because one of the things I always say, you've heard me say this a number of times, is that women veterans were never drafted. They always joined the military by choice.
Right.
So that makes them very special and unique people, and not very many women make that choice.
That's very true. That's very true. Yeah. And it hasn't been recognized until rather recently that a lot of them are very affected by PTSD.
Indeed.
Yes.
And that post-traumatic stress disorder comes not only from combat experiences, which in fact women, really from World War II, one of the first women I ever treated had served at the end of World War II, and she had had a military sexual trauma experience. So the women have these trauma experiences while they're on active duty in the military service. They may be related to sexual assault or sexual harassment,
Right.
or combat, or any other kind of thing that happens to them. And I think, again, one of the decisions that you and I made was that we were not going to ask women to substantiate some sort of official diagnosis.
No.
Tell me a little more, because this was one of your brainchildren.
For me, that was just really important for a number of reasons. Number one, sometimes it's very difficult to admit that you have a PTSD diagnosis because it gets in the way of things.
Indeed.
It gets in the way of things like if somebody wanted to go into law enforcement or that kind of a diagnosis, so they might not even go for treatment because they don't want to admit it. And the other is that there's, especially with military sexual trauma, there's such a, I don't know.
Stigma?
There's a stigma behind it that, if they don't want to be seen as complaining, they don't want to be out of the norm. Not only that, but it takes a whole lot for the VA to even admit that they have PTSD and that there was some kind of trauma. So, and for many people who have been damaged that way, and it's not a weakness. PTSD is not a weakness, it's an injury.
Exactly.
It's an actual injury. But for people who have been injured, it's very difficult for them to fight for a diagnosis or to fight for services that they should be getting.
Especially this particular type of injury, the post-traumatic stress disorder, just because of the nature of what it is. It can be so crippling. And then there's always, with any kind of sexual trauma, there's a certain amount of shame attached to that. People often do victim blaming. What did you do wrong? You, the victim, what did you do wrong that caused this thing to happen to you?
Exactly.
And so, I hear what you're saying, that a lot of women, a lot of women who served in the military might be reluctant to even get the diagnosis in the first place.
Exactly.
So we decided, it was your idea, and I agreed with you 100%, that we weren't going to ask them for that kind of verification.
It's yes. I don't care if they have a diagnosis. If they believe that they have PTSD, then that's fine. That's enough.
For us, right?
That's enough.
Exactly.
Because that's not something you make up. It's not something you want to, you want to have.
You don't necessarily want to own that if you don't have
exactly.
to. For sure.
And what I really love is that in our conversations, we decided to go a different direction than traditional psychotherapy.
Absolutely. Again, we really wanted to be able to provide women with a set of skills that they could take home with them after their weekend with us and put to use immediately in their lives, and that by using those skills it would make a difference instantaneously for them. And we have had a number of women veterans who have gone through the weekend with us who have told us that it does work that way. And we also wanted them to have an opportunity to relax, to stretch out and expand, and to have those unique experiences like the energy healers and the holistic aesthetics practice. These are kind of secrets we won't tell everybody about until they come up to experience them. And one of the decisions I think we also made was we were not going to be asking women to unpack their trauma experiences.
Right.
Enough of that with the therapy, and that's good, and we support everybody and endorse the psychotherapy that they may be in wherever.
Absolutely, we support that.
And,
yes.
But we didn't necessarily want them to feel like they needed to do that here.
Right, and they didn't need to.
Yeah.
They don't need to. I mean, if something triggers them and they choose to talk about that, they're welcome to talk about that privately. But that's not part of what we do here.
And we'll be there in support for them if they are feeling triggered and need a little extra help and assistance from us.
Exactly.
Things I think that was our guiding star that you and I both absolutely agreed on was that we wanted to create an experience for women veterans where they could go home with a new skill set that they could put to use immediately. Remember that?
Exactly. Things that I'm really glad that we're able to provide for the women veterans is instruction in meditation. Mm-hmm. We have a person who is a 30-year meditator, and not in the religious sense. She is trained in teaching people with trauma how to meditate, and it's secular meditation, so it's not religious at all. But that's so important. I'm so grateful that we're able to give that kind of service to our women vets, and they really enjoy it.
Oh, they get a lot out of it. You can see they get a lot out of it because after they come out of each one of those sessions, their whole faces have changed. Their facial expressions open, they're relaxed, they're smiling. It's like you can literally physically see a transformation in them just from sitting for 1 hour doing the meditation.
Absolutely.
And then we always give them 2 hours. So
that's right. I'm just really glad we can do that. First became the director here at Spirit Mountain. Somehow I knew that what I really wanted to do was to provide some kind of healing services for women veterans with PTSD. And that's why, and I had told our board of directors that. I said, this is something, I don't know why, I don't know, just something that just came to me that I knew was important. Mm-hmm. And so Callie and I got together, which is terrific. Mm-hmm. So that's why we ended up with collaborating on this.
Indeed, and It has been a collaboration right from the beginning. Mm-hmm. When Mary and I sat down together for the first time after we met, do you remember that? And we started to discuss what exactly is it we want to do? And how do we want to do it?
Or in a military setting, it needed to be something that was connected with this place.
Sexual trauma, there's a certain amount of shame attached to that. Mm-hmm. People often do victim blaming, what did you do wrong? You, the victim, what did you do wrong that caused this thing to happen to you?
Exactly.
And so, I hear what you're saying, that a lot of women... a lot of women who served in the military might be reluctant to even get the diagnosis in the first place.
Exactly.
So we decided, it was your idea, and I agreed with you 100%, that we weren't going to ask them for that kind of verification.
It's yes. I don't care if they have a diagnosis.
And we have had a number of women veterans who have gone through the weekend with us who have told us that it does work that way. And we also wanted them to have an opportunity to relax, to stretch out and expand, and to have those unique experiences like the energy healers and the holistic aesthetics practice. These are kind of secrets we won't tell everybody about until they come up to experience them. And one of the decisions I think we also made was we were not going to be asking women to unpack their trauma experiences.
Right.
Enough of that with the therapy, and that's good, and we support everybody and endorse the psychotherapy that they may be in wherever.
Absolutely, we support that. Yes.
But we didn't necessarily want them to feel like they needed to do that here.
Right, and they didn't need to.
Karis at the Trauma Resource Institute. She's the one of the founders and the executive director of the Institute. They also do a trauma resiliency model. And because we are choosing not to do the psychotherapeutic-based retreat, we decided not to use the trauma resiliency model because that's really all about being in psychotherapy as you work through resiliency and the trauma at the same time.
Right.
And you and I decided that we were going to approach this differently. Unfortunately, Elaine had developed this other option called the community resiliency model, which doesn't require the adjunct psychotherapeutic treatment. She's used that model in a number of different places, really around the world, where she's been called in by communities and asked to please come train communities that have experienced different types of trauma, so that the whole community has experienced a trauma and been traumatized by some event.
Right.
And she comes in and she uses this model and teaches these skills and trains them to be able to continue to support one another after she and her team leave. And it's been wildly successful all over the world.
And I think that's why it works so well in dealing with the women, with the women veterans, because they are a community that has been affected by trauma. And they all have very common experiences. We hear this all the time with the women who come here, because we've had upwards of 30, 40 people already, women who have come over the last 2.5 years. And we hear exactly that. Oh, I know how you feel. I know exactly how you feel. So because they have such common experiences, and that's just so important for healing.
Absolutely.
For healing.
Right? One of the things that you're reminding me of right now is that when we go down for the equine assisted therapy in Garner Valley, one of the things that Nancy O'Brien, who runs that experience down there, always says to us is how much they look forward to us bringing the women veterans, how much they look forward to spending the day working with the women veterans in particular, because they're already a tribe when we get there.
That's right. Very connected, you know. I mean, they've had similar training, they've had their military training, all of those things, but they've also had not every bit of the trauma that's the same, but a lot of it is so similar that they really can connect with each other. I love going out for the equine assisted therapy. It's terrific. We go out to Wind Horse Crossing, and Nancy O'Brien just is terrific. She's a clinical psychologist trained in equine assisted therapy, and the women they just blossom under that training. We go out for the whole day and have a picnic lunch out there, and it's just beautiful. And then you watch the women one-on-one with each horse, and it's just beautiful.
And watching women conquering some of their fears, right? Especially this time around. Women who are deathly afraid of horses, either just because they're a horse or because they're a great big animal. Right? Whether it's a horse or a bear or a mountain lion or a panther or whatever it might be. It's big. And watching them with the support that Nancy gives, the support of their sisters, the support that you and I provide, venturing out to conquer their fear and spending time with the horses, walking a horse themselves, spending time alone in the corral with a single horse, and really experiencing a communing kind of thing with the horse. It is, I think, very much a spiritual experience that women are having.
I think so too. And speaking of a spiritual experience, that's part of why we use the alternative kinds of healing modalities here at Spirit Mountain for this part too, which works beautifully in conjunction with the equine assisted therapy. Because the things that we do here are alternative healing methods, but just because they're alternative doesn't mean that they don't work, because they're very effective.
Absolutely.
Very effective. And then we also do some things like some healing ceremony. And the women understand ceremony 100%, because being in the military, there are actions you perform that have a meaning. And that's exactly what we do here. We have some actions that we perform all together, and they have a meaning. And then as people can repeat those actions when they go home, they have that meaning and they have that connection with what they've done here.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
I think that you and I get as much out of having the women veterans veterans here and spending the weekend with them and going through these experiences with them as they do.
Oh, I do. It's amazing. I just, I always go home exhausted and invigorated. Both.
Well, you work very hard through the weekend. I get to sit most of the time. You're up on your feet.
Well, we get things done. We have a lot of logistics because not only do we have the women here for the treatment, but they also either stay here at our facility or we have a donation of another house. This weekend we had 10 women here, and that was terrific. 5 here in the house and 5 in a donated house. But we feed them. So they're here 24/7 from Thursday afternoon until Sunday afternoon. So it's a long time.
And there's absolutely no charge to the veteran under any circumstance. Plus, we'll assist them with transportation if they have difficulty getting here.
Right.
Because we are up in the mountain, and it is a windy road, and sometimes the access to the roads is limited. And we have people that work with you here at Spirit Mountain who are used to driving up and down that road, and will go all the way down to San Diego, all the way out to, what's the farthest place we've gone to pick people up?
Tehachapi.
All the way out to Tehachapi, California. How many miles is that?
I don't even know.
I bet it's close to 200 miles.
Oh, at least. Well, it's right, very close to Bakersfield. And we also have, with the women, the reason that we don't charge them is because, as far as I'm concerned, they've already paid enough.
Exactly. They've already paid
Bottom
their
line,
dues.
They paid their dues.
Right.
They shouldn't have to pay for healing.
And the truth of the matter also, I think, is that, at least statistically, what we know from the VA's studies of women veterans, the population of women veterans throughout the country, is they often do not earn as much as their civilian sisters. So we're looking at a population of women who very likely wouldn't have the money to be able to afford to come here and spend this weekend with us if we did charge for it.
True. Very true.
But we're in it for our hearts, right?
Yep. Absolutely.
We're absolutely dedicated to the work that we're doing. We enjoy it so much. We support each other in it.
True.
And we feel really blessed and benefited ourselves by being able to do it.
Very true. We do it right now is an important piece, and that's to continue to look for funding to continue this work. So
that is
so important.
A critical factor because Spirit Mountain covers all of their needs while they're here. I mean, literally, if they needed, a feminine hygiene product, we would be sure to supply it for them.
Yes, absolutely.
So everything from, bathroom needs through high spiritual needs, you cover that through Spirit Mountain.
We do.
And Spirit Mountain is not a rich nonprofit organization.
No, not at all. Not at all. It's a small nonprofit.
Being able to continue this program and support more and more women veterans is dependent on you being able to get the funding.
Very true.
To cover the expenses of this.
Very true.
And as we're saying, Spirit Mountain is a nonprofit organization. This particular project is a nonprofit project. And we really and truly would not be able to do it without that kind of funding.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah.
Right.
One of the other things that I like a lot about what we do is that all of our facilitators live right here in Idyllwild.
True.
So and they're all women. Not necessarily that we'd have to be, but we have tended to choose women because those women that we know and love have the skills that we need to have here.
Very true. Very true.
And they're all local.
Mm-hmm. We have a rich supply of wonderful people up here.
And as it is a special environment in and of itself.
True.
All right. The ranch is called Windhorse Crossing, and the name comes from a Tibetan tradition related to Tibetan prayer flags. On Tibetan prayer flags are the prayers for the well-being of all living creatures, and the tradition is that they are hung out until they blow away. because they believe that a wind horse comes and takes the prayers from the flags to wherever they're supposed to go. And that idea really touched me, because that's been my experience with horses, is that they really seem to understand what our soul and our heart wants, and then oftentimes can answer prayers. And there are reasons why horses can do this, in that horses are prey animals, and that means that in the wild they're hunted by predators that might include mountain lions, wolves, and so they, in order to stay alive, they've evolved in ways that allows them to be very sensitive to their environment. Their eyes are on the side of their head, which gives them almost 360-degree vision. Their ears are big and can move independently, so they can hear exceptionally well. They have a big nose, so they have a really good sense of smell. They have an organ that allows them to pick up on the pheromones that we give off when our emotions change. And the last thing is they have very sensitive skin that is very aware of approach, not only touch, but approach. So they are always exquisitely aware of their environment.
I would like you to do it from the side, up towards their shoulder. So I'm looking at Frody, right? And Frody notices me. So I pause, and I take a breath. And then I'm going to respectfully approach him. And I'll pause, because he noticed me again. And just do it gradually towards his shoulder. Putting out the hand so he can get your scent. And he's moving away. So I could either choose to, hey, maybe I'll just stand still and slow down my energy. And I could again change directions. Come on, we're going to change directions. Come on.
Get my picture taken.
Come on.
You did your best.
Wow.
You're a show off, aren't you? Yeah, you little show pony.
Good job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I think she's a little attached to it.
See that drop? That's indifference. You're the one in charge.
You did good, girl. You did very good.
So my name is Nicole Hill. I'm 22 years old and I was recently discharged from the United States Marine Corps. I was a Marine for 2 years prior to my medical discharge. In the Marine Corps, I experienced some trauma such as MST and harassment, and that led to my discharge, but now I am a proud survivor. I am going through the San Diego VA for my health care, and through my trauma and my experiences, I have a rough time with my recovery, but I'm doing very well now, and I was blessed for a doctor to support me in my service dog experience. So with having Belle in our training, she already has done so much for me. They had me on multiple antidepressants. I've taken Zoloft, Prozac, etc. You named it, I've probably taken it, and they haven't worked. Having her is what saves my life every day. I struggle a lot with SI and SA, also known as suicidal ideation and suicidal attempts. With her, I have no reason to commit suicide. She is my companion. She is there for me every day, and when I get in that mind process, I don't, because I have to. She needs me to come home. I'm also in multiple therapies, which help a lot as well. So, this arm is my princess's tattoos. What they stand for is being an independent princess. So many people told me Disney was all about sacrificing your life for a man, and that is completely what I'm not for. Yes, I like men, but that's not what life is all about. So I have Moana, Pocahontas, Mulan, Elsa, and Belle. And my favorite princesses would be Belle and Pocahontas, especially. Pocahontas straight up told John Smith to go home even though she was in love with him because she didn't need him in his life. And Belle told the Beast, nah, my father comes first. I need to take care of my business. And Belle, I think, is such an amazing character because she eventually got what she wanted. She got her love, but she just had to take care of her business first. My other tattoo would be this tattoo. And it says, she is a warrior in a fight against herself. It has an open heart to remember to always wear your heart on your sleeve and not to become bitter. It has the she look written like a storybook because it's the beginning of my story. And the beginning of my story is very black and dark and a little rough. And the end is an anchor to hold me down, and it's white down there to look at the hope. But also, the disorder I am diagnosed with, one of them, is borderline personality disorder. And it is known for being seen in only black and white and not being able to see the gray and the hope of life. That's why I have my semicolons in gray, is to represent my suicide attempts that I was not successful at, and that there is a middle part of life, and the rainbow stands for the complete recovery and actually being successful in life.